Deputy Minister and the team from the department, I would imagine we also have representation from the NPA, the SIU and Legal Aid, who are also affected by this budget vote. We did receive an apology from the minister who's abroad with the Director General. Our members will know that I think in terms of today's proceedings, we also don't have, we have, well, the 3 hours, that's quite limited time. I'm going to hand over to the Deputy Minister to then perhaps take us through. The members would have received 2 presentations, the SIU presentation on the budget and APP as well as the departments. So I'm going to hand over then to the Deputy Minister, but I think in my discussion with the DM, we did indicate that both presentations are pretty much long, but we would give the department at least around 45 minutes to take us through both presentations, and thereafter members would then interact with the presentations. Let me then hand over to yourself, DM, then to take us through the process. And I see other committee members have also joined the platform. DM, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, members, and good morning, everybody on the platform. The 2 presentations you were speaking about, that's the department, and what is the other one?
Sorry, DM, we received a presentation from the SIU as well.
The SIU presentation. Yeah, look, I think the SIU are on the platform. The head of the SIU had, I don't know if he's given formal apologies to you, but I think there were problems with the notification of the SIU, and he says he only got notice yesterday, and he's got interviews. He's on an interview panel for a position in the SIU. So there are other people sent, but there may have been problems with when they were notified. But from my side, well, the NPA are here. I'm not sure about Legal Aid. From the department, the delegation is led by the acting DDG, Calais Pillay, in the absence of the Director General. And there's quite a big delegation, which includes provincial heads from a number of provinces and other DDGs and officials in the department. But let me just, by way of introduction, I'll hand over to Ms. Pillay to lead the presentation. The performance of departments and entities in our portfolio has continued to improve in this medium-term strategic framework period. The NPA is gradually regaining its feet. Legal Aid South Africa continues to be a beacon of hope on accountability and good governance year in and year out. They continue to obtain clean audit outcomes. We acknowledge that there are still challenges in our portfolio, but we don't sweep these under the carpet. Earlier at the beginning of this term of administration, the performance of the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development stood at a worrying 50%. Today, as we account to the Select Committee, the department's performance has improved to 80%. And while this is a significant improvement, the department will continue implementing measures to make more impact on service delivery. The policy imperatives behind the annual performance plan are the need for an accessible justice system in a vibrant and evolving constitutional democracy. These policy considerations aim to enable justice and advance constitutionalism and respect for human rights and the rule of law. The 2023-24 annual performance plan has 10 outcomes and 96 indicators in total. 81 are for the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, and 15 are for the NPA. 8 indicators that were on last year's APP were not included in this one due to the fact that they were either achieved or they'd been planned for one financial year, and there are 15 new indicators that have been included. The department tabled its 2023-24 APP on the 26th of April and subsequently presented it to the Portfolio Committee in the National Assembly on the 3rd of May. The Portfolio Committee expressed concerns relating to the reduction of certain targets, and these have subsequently been amended upwards. Just to say that we are still disappointed with the complaints that we continue to receive from the public when they interact with the Master's Office, and we commit ourselves to turn around the situation by addressing systematic deficiencies. In this regard, the department will outline the progress made in the modernization and digitization to date. And amongst some of the priorities for this financial year will be modernizing and digitized justice system platforms, increased access to justice services, transformed state legal services, transformed legal profession, improved and transformed master services, and advanced constitutionalism, human rights, and the rule of law. Just from a time point of view, because a lot of this will get covered by the department, as we enter the last year of the current administration, there's a renewed commitment and sense of urgency to finalize and complete all the outstanding initiatives and programs which we had undertaken to do when we took office in 2019. Service delivery and access to justice for all remain an utmost priority for our department, and therefore we continue to support and strengthen our magistrates' courts as best we can. And we are dealing with the issue with the magistrates, the regional court presidents and the chief magistrates, of the backlogs in the magistrates' courts and the postponements. And we are, and I think the officials will give more details, also trying to ensure that there is electricity or provision for electricity at all courts, or at the courts when there are power outages. And then the NPA and the SIU will be giving their inputs. So let me, in closing, say that the relevant departments and entities under the ministries will present detailed plans for 2023-24, the 2023-24 financial year. We are hard at work to create a better life for all our people and to make access to justice a reality for all. Let me then hand over to the acting DG, Ms. Calais Pillay. I'm not sure, Ms. Pillay, how you've got to leave some time for the SIU. So you just need we were given 45 minutes for both. And I understand their presentation is 80 pages. Yeah, I think if you can try and take 25 minutes or so. Thanks, Ms. Pillay.
Thank you, Deputy Minister, and thank you, Chairperson, as well, and good morning to the honourable members. Yes, Deputy Minister, I have informed the officials of the time limitations, and without saying much further, I will request Mr. Titi to introduce his team. I think the first few slides can be taken as read, but we will do a very brief overview of what the presentation is about. So if Gershwin, if you can please call up the presentation, I will just talk to a few slides and then hand over to the officials to present. Okay, Mr. Gilebe, do you want to start the presentation on this slide, or can you go to slide 3, please? Okay, thank you very much. Slide 3. Thank you, Chairperson. Just by way of overview and what gave rise to this current annual performance plan, it's a revised framework for the strategic plan and the annual performance plan, seeing that this is, we are reaching the end of the 6th administration. We also use the framework for managing the program of performance information. We looked at the mandates of the department in terms of the acts of parliament. We looked at the medium-term strategic framework and ministerial priorities in the performance agreement. And we looked at the strategic focus derived from the strategic outcomes and challenges faced by the department. We also considered the budget and other resource constraints as well as operational capabilities. The next slide, please, Fatu. As we can see from this slide, there are 5 programs that we will cover, including the NPA, and they will talk to those slides. Next slide. No, I beg your pardon, Fatu, just go back. Chairperson, I think what is important on this slide is that we have 10 outcomes, 96 indicators in total, 81 that are for the DOJ-CD and 15 for the NPA. 8 indicators from the previous year were not included in this APP because they were achieved in the previous financial year, and there are 15 new indicators. So I'm now going to hand over to Mr. Galebe to take us through the presentation and give us the highlights of the presentation in about 20 minutes. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chairperson and members, honorable members of the committee, Deputy Minister, Acting DG, members of the executive, and colleagues that are on the platform this morning. I'm going to give you a high-level presentation of what our APP entails, and which I will, because number of areas that were already covered by the Acting DG and the Deputy Minister as part of their introduction. I will just go straight to the indicators so that we still finish our presentation within the allocated time of 20 minutes. The slides where and in terms of the strategic focus, I'll just also touch that we are also going to modernize and to increase access to justice services. We are also committed to deepen constitutionalizing respect for human rights and rule of law, and also review the justice-related colonial and apartheid era legislation, and also implement the NEP to combat racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related tolerance, and also address the scourge of GBV and protect women and children, and transform the state legal services, and transform the legal profession, and also make sure that we provide facilities that are accessible by people with disability. We'll also make sure that we showcase the services that we do so that whoever wants the services knows where to go. And as the DM indicated earlier on, that we have shown a great improvement in the performance, where we indicated that we are hovering around 80%, and we are also working very hard to make sure that that performance should be accompanied by unqualified audit opinion, and we will also continue to strengthen the fight against fraud and corruption, and also the master services, as the DM indicated that we still have some operational issues that we need to improve so that we have operational efficiency as we move forward. And in terms of the outcomes that we have 10 as indicated earlier on, and under outcome number 1, we've got 8 indicators, outcome number 2 with 16 indicators, outcome number 3, 2 indicators, outcome number 4, 22 indicators, outcome number 5, 9, and outcome number 6, 4, outcome number 7, 5, outcome number 8, 3, outcome number 9, 10, and outcome number 10, 16. And these are the details of these are the indicators that the DM indicated that, and the acting DG that we removed. I won't go because either they were achieved or they were targeted to be completed in 1 year. I won't go through them for the purpose of saving time and finish within the 20 minutes that allocated. And again, these were the indicators that we introduced in the new APP, and we have categorize them in terms of programs where they were introduced. And let me go straight to the targets that we have. As the DM and the acting DG indicated earlier on, we, as part of the outcome number 1, we are going to continue with the initiative that we modernize our justice services. And as part of, as our target for 2022-23, we want to complete phase 2 of maintenance services, and this phase 2 will have online additional identified transaction capabilities. And secondly, we also want to make sure that we develop a complete phase 2 of the disease state, and this also will have additional identified transaction capabilities. And again, on phase under this outcome number 1, we want to complete phase 3 of protection order services, and this one will also have will also bring integration capability by the end of the financial year. And we also want to roll 170 key court audiovisual solution to 170 courtrooms by the end of the financial year. And in terms of women, women appointed at the occupying senior management services and LP10, we are targeting that we reach 50% and maintain it, and make sure that 2.2% of total workforce position are occupied by people with disability. And again, as part of empowering youth, we are also going to make sure that the 22% of total workforce position are occupied by the youth. And we are also planning that 80% of all reported corruption cases are investigated for officials finalized. And we also want to make sure that we reduce our vacancy rate from the estimated performance that we have in this in the previous financial year to 5% in the next financial year. And we will finalize 75% of disciplinary cases within 90 days from the first day of set down of the hearing. And we will also finalize 80% of grievance, resolve grievance within 60 days from date the grievance is lodged. And we will also make sure that we eliminate fruitless and wasteful expenditure in this financial year. That's why we have got 100% there as our target. We'll also make sure that we reduce irregular expenditure by 75% in this current financial year. And again, we'll continue we are committed to continue to make sure that we pay 100% of all undisputed and valid invoices within 30 days from date of receipt. And we are going to also allocate 40% of discretionary procurement to women, and also 40% of discretionary procurement to EMEs and QSEs. And as part of the initiative to make sure that we achieve the unqualified audit opinion, we have set our target for ourselves that in this financial year, we must achieve unqualified audit opinion on both vote account and the predetermined objective. And as part of capacitating the employees of the department so that we can increase our operational efficiency, we are also going to make sure that we conduct 36 specialized training programs. And we also we committed that we will submit the social compact discussion document to the president for adoption by the end of this financial year. And as way of better managing disaster in the department, we are also planning that we will develop a disaster management plan and make sure that it get approved by this financial year. That's all that we have under outcome number 2. And outcome 3, we are planning that we are going to make sure that we conduct public education and communication activities, which are 400, to make sure that we showcase what we do as a department, so that people who need services, the services of the Department of Justice, can know what we provide, so that when they are confronted with those challenges, they can approach us and we assist them as quickly as possible. Then under program 2, these are the indicators that we have, and we are planning that we will refurbish 70 courts through minor capital works, and we will also, as part of, if you recall, in 2018 we had a presidential summit on GBVF. As part of that national strategy that was developed to make sure that we address issues of GBVF, we under pillar number 3, we committed that we will develop the femicide watch, but in this financial year we'll make sure that we complete phase 6 of the femicide watch. And again, under this one, we are committed that we will complete 96 child justice preliminary inquiries within 90 days after the date of first appearance, and we will also table the annual report on the implementation of the Child Justice Act in Parliament by 30 September, and we are also committed that we will process 70% of NRSO clearance certificate within 10 days from the receipt of the compliant request. And as part of our commitment, we look at the outstanding or backlog NRSO clearance. We committed that in this financial year we'll clear that backlog. And again, we will also make sure that we designate 14 sexual offenses court in this financial year, and we will also continue to make sure that our facilities are compliant with a strategy on universal access with persons with disability. And in this current financial year, we have set ourselves 65 of those courts that should be made compliant with the strategy on universal access for persons with disability. And we will finalize 85% of family advocate litigation matters within 12 months from date of opening the matter. And again, we'll also finalize 85% of family advocate alternative dispute resolution mechanism matter within 6 months. And we'll also finalize 92% of maintenance matters within 90 days from date of proper service of process. And again, we also want to make sure we finalize 50% of maintenance investigation within 60 days from date of receipt of instruction. And again, in this financial year, we will also conduct activities to enhance effectiveness of established SOGX provincial tax team, and the target is 13, and again, also 13 activities actioned in collaboration with other stakeholders to prevent and combat trafficking in person. And we will develop the strategy for domestic violence court-based support services, and we will also do a report on the review of the small claims court system, and we'll submit it to the minister before the end of the financial year. These are the 3 indicators that we included for this new financial year. Where 95% of decree of divorce will be issued by the registrar within 14 days of finalization of the divorce, and 95% of domestic violence protection orders submitted by the clerk to the subs or sheriff within 24 hours from the time of order is granted. And we will also finalize 95% of domestic violence protection orders served by the clerk via email within 25 from the time the order is granted by the court. And again, we will also finalize the policy framework and foreign language interpreting in this financial year, and we will also have a national conference to review the criminal justice system in South Africa by this. And under the outcome number 10, we'll continue to capacitate the the SCCC that we have established in the past 2-3 years to fight against fraud and corruption. Under the program 3, which is legal services, and in the main, we are going to make sure that 80% of LND accounts in disease estate where letters of executor has been issued within 21 days, and we will also make sure 75% of letters of appointment issued in disease estate within 21 days, and we'll also make sure that 80% of guardian fund application are paid within 40 days from receipt of all required documents, and we'll also make sure that 83% of certificate of appointments issued in all bankruptcy matters within 10 days from receipt of all documentation, 90% of LND accounts in bankruptcy matters examined within 15 days from receipt of all document, and 65% of letters of authority issued in trust within 21 days from receipt of all documentation, and 90% of letters of appointment issued in curatorship estate within 15 days. And we will also make sure that the policy on appointment is tabled in Parliament in this financial year. And as the DM indicated, that as part of addressing the challenges that we have in the Master's Office, we'll continue with the implementation of interventions that are there to make sure that we turn around the Master's Office. And under outcome number 6, we will develop 4 bills and regulation and submit it to Ministry for approval. We'll also 3 bills seeking to appeal and or repeal and replace colonial apartheid era legislation will be submitted to ministry, and we will also complete 20 rules of the courts and submit them to the board for the approval, and also 10 research papers submitted to the South African Law Reform Commission for our consideration and approval. And with expungement, we have set a target for 75% to be completed within 75 days, working days. In terms of the fight against crime and corruption as one of our outcomes, we'll develop 2 bills, regulation and notices to strengthen the anti-corruption architecture of South Africa, and we'll submit them to the Minister for consideration and approval. And we will also implement 3 activities of high-level action to exit the grey listing of FATF. And in terms of outcome number 7, we will make sure that 50% of the policies that we have developed as part of the implementation of the State Acting Amendment Act are implemented, and we will make sure that 56% of litigation cases are settled, and we will make sure that 80% of legal opinion finalized within 30 days from date of receipt of the instruction, and also 80% of suggested bills and subordinate legislation finalized within 30 days from date of receipt of instruction, and also 78% of international agreements finalized within 30 days. And in terms of outcome number 7, we have got 3 indicators that speaks specifically to the briefs that we allocate to PDI legal practitioners. We're targeting 83% in this financial year, and we're also targeting that we'll distribute 30% of value of briefs of those 83% to female legal practitioners, and we will also want to increase the pool of women. Then we make sure that the 41% of those briefs allocated should be allocated to female legal practitioners. And under outcome number 9, which talks to the advanced constitutionalism, human rights, and the rule of law, will develop a virtual repository for data collection, statistical for measurement for racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related tolerance. And this one comes from the medium-term strategic framework, and we will also submit 1 country report to the Minister for approval for submission to Cabinet. We will also make sure that 85% of valid requests for extradition and mutual assistance in criminal matters are processed within 20 days. And we also have to have 6 engagement held with stakeholders towards the promotion of Equality Act and Equality Courts. And we will also have 4 constitutional dialogues to advance constitutionalism. And we will also make sure that 1 international human rights instrument is submitted to Minister for approval. We'll also make sure that we conduct 200 awareness through the community advice offices, and we will fund 50 of those committees advice offices in this financial year. And we will develop a framework on international relation engagements, and we will submit it to the DG for approval. And we'll also have a national conference on the state of human rights in South Africa in this financial year. Then we will also have under this program, we also have this indicator that contribute to outcome number 3, where we are planning to have 6 sustained and visible anti-xenophobia campaign, and this indicator is from the MTSF, and I will then jump the NPA and then go straight to the auxiliary services, which we have got 4 indicators, and the first one will be the number of KPIs that we are going to ensure that they are on the IJS dashboard. We are left with 1, which all in all, those KPIs are 28. We will do the last one in this financial year. We'll also have 14 IJS governance intervention sessions, and 2 IJS operational sites will be assessed for vulnerability to cyber attacks. And lastly, we'll make sure that 20 PVS or person verification is deployed to 20 SAPS police stations. That's what we have as part of the of our APP. I think that we can give it to the NPA so that they cover their part of their APP. I'm going straight to the NPA indicators.
Chair, if I may quickly just inform the good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable colleagues. I'm here with our team from the NPA. Ms. Tsidi Modise, who is in the position of a DDG, acting DDG in the NPA, will deal with the NPA slides. Thank you. Tsidi.
Thank you, NDPP, and thank you, Chair and honorable members and the Deputy Minister. In terms of the NPA, I will not go through each and every one of the indicators in the interest of time, because the indicators have remained the same for most of the indicators, except for a few that I will talk to. On the effective prosecutions, the indicators have remained unchanged on the conviction rate, including as well the indicator on witness protection, where the target is still the same, that we are planning to have no person harmed who is in the witness protection. Next slide, Fatu. On the next slide, whilst Fatu is moving it, which deals with the effective, again, still on the, Fatu haven't moved. The next slide that deals with the fraud and corruption matters dealt with. The indicators have remained the same as well, except for the one that deals with the number of investigations authorized, which is an ID-related indicator. It's a new indicator that we have now included since 2022-23. And we'll continue with the numbers as indicated below. And then we have the state capture cases and complex corruption matters enrolled. Also, we started in the 2022-23 in the manner that it is crafted, as well as the prosecution instituted involving money laundering. That one is an indicator that we have restated. We were measuring money laundering, but we were measuring convictions in money laundering in the previous year. For this year, we will be measuring the prosecutions that were instituted relating to money laundering. Then we go to the AFU indicators. Those remain relatively the same because they are also MTSF indicators. So we will continue with them, including the recoveries as they are. The last one is related to outcome 4, which deals with the victim-centric services enhanced. We have restated this indicator on the number of TCCs established initially, or in the previous years. We used to indicate the total number of TCCs that are in operation. For this year, we have restated it to measure only the new ones that we'll be doing in a financial year. The next one is on the conviction rate in sexual offenses. That also is an indicator we've been measuring before. That has not changed. We just keep it as it is. And thank you, Gelebe. Mr. Gelebe.
If you are done, Chidi, may we move to the slides on the budget, Fatu, so that we can get to the end of the presentation? CFO, will you come in, please?
Good morning, Deputy Minister, the Chair, and honorable members. The budget allocation of the department is 23 billion. This first slide tries to show the budget allocation per program. You will notice that the biggest allocation is on court services, which is at 29%, and that's where most of the service delivery initiatives are. And the NPA also has a bigger chunk of the allocation, which is 23%. And this is a program that deals mainly with corruption issues. The next slide shows the allocation per economic classification. You will notice that the biggest portion of our expenditure goes to compensation of employees, because most of the work that we do are labor intensive. We have got lawyers, we have got a lot of people, around 17 million, if I'm not, 17,000 if I'm not mistaken. So this is where most of our budget goes, and then followed by goods and services which support the day-to-day operations of the department. Transfers to subsidies goes to entities that we control. Your public protector is also covered here, and your legal aid, and legal aid takes the bigger chunk of your of the transfer and subsidies. And capital payment for capital assets is for the facilities that we own, that we work together with Public Works to do maintenance and also pay rental for. The next slide just goes further to analyze. The next slide just goes further to analyze the expenditure to show which one is the highest cost driver. The next slide, please. The highest cost drivers of the department. So in program one, you will notice that most of the funds goes to ICT support and office accommodation. The slide before this one, please. And then the next portion is program two. Program two is the one, yeah, thanks, where the court services is, and it supports the lower courts and family advocates in this current financial year. We're sitting here, and the Magistrate Commission and Facility Management. But in the new financial year, we're looking at moving family advocates out of the court services unit. So 66% of this goes to compensation of employees. Then program three, which is your state legal services. That's where the state attorneys are and the masters. So you'll notice that the big allocation goes to compensation of employees. I've already indicated that NPA also takes a bigger chunk of the budget. And on the transfers, we also have, on the auxiliary services, we have got IJS and modernization of IT systems that are sitting under that indicator. The next slide, honorable members, is just to show that in our different provinces, we support the work that is done in different provinces. There is a provincial head in each province, and also there are finance officials. There are certain procurements that are decentralized that are done at provincial level. So the support for the courts in the province are allocated funding in order to support their service delivery initiatives and day-to-day operations. So this one just shows the budget allocation per province. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think that's the end of our presentation. If there's anything specific that you would like us to deal with on the presentation, we can do so. Otherwise, we hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, maybe help me out here, GM. We have that presentation by the SIU. I think in terms of time, we could give them about 15 minutes to take us through their presentation.
Chairperson.
Who's this? Is that Honorable Dlamini? Honorable Motsamai?
I was just to know why can't these people we can see their face so that we can know them even next time when we are on the street, because to hide themselves is a problem to myself.
No, it's fine, Honorable Motsamai. Maybe let's just move on to the let's move on to the presentation by the SIU. I'm not sure who's leading with that presentation, but please assist.
Good morning. My name is Thenjiwe Dlamini. I'll be leading the presentation from SIU. If I can be given the right to share, and I'm with my executive. And I'm Thenjiwe Dlamini, Head of Strategy, Monitoring and Evaluation at SIU. And I would like to greet the committee and also the all the members. I'm with the other executive, and apology from our advocate, SOU, and also apology from our CFO, and apology from our Chief Human Capital, as they have some engagement today. So I'll be representing SIU for the presentation.
Okay, Gashwina, you're able to give us sharing rights?
Good morning, Chair and members. They have sharing rights, Chair. They can just go ahead and flight it.
Oh, they do? Okay, great, thanks.
Okay. I hope you can see my presentation.
Yes, we can, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much. I will just make sure that I just go straight to our strategic focus. We'll skip the mandate as the presentation was shared to all the members. What is on our strategic focus for this year as SIU? We look at our vision and mission. It has not changed, and also our values has not changed. So this is our about 14 strategic focus that the SIU is looking at in the APP that has been tabled to Parliament and was also presented to the Minister. And the first strategic focus that is also part of our target, we want to improve turnaround time of SIU investigation. Currently, SIU is implementing what we call a reporting period of 1 year, which we call interim report for ongoing investigation that is exceeding a year. To discuss the further and reduce it, we want to reduce it to 6 months so that we inform the presidency when it comes to the investigation that the SIU is undertaking. The second one, the focus, we also want to monitor the implementation of the SIU referrals and the consequence management, which is one of the key point that we want to monitor as an organization. A structure has been established at a presidency level to monitor the implementation of the SIU recommendation. We had 2 phases. First phase of the project of data consolidation has been completed. On the phase 2 that we're working in this current year is where we want to develop now the system. We are working closely with the DPME so that we can help the system, that we can track the progress of the referrals that we are doing from our investigation, and also consequence management, so that at the end of the day, we'll be able to close the loop or when it comes to the referrals and also the consequence management. The third point is that we want to implement a targeted prevention and awareness campaign. As part of our mandate, we're targeting a prevention awareness campaign ongoing, now gaining more momentum as it post-COVID, where we visit different provinces and different organizations so that we can make the community and also the employees understand what is it when it comes to prevention and awareness, and when it comes to anti-corruption. So this campaign really is making a lot of difference, and we're getting better now calls to refer those issues. The number 4 strategic focus that we have is making a systematic recommendation to state institutions so that they can prevent a recurrence of corruption and maladministration and malpractice. In this one, we find that we normally investigate similar cases in same state agencies or state institutions. So this systematic recommendation, it will assist so that they can help prevent that recurrence of the same corruption that is happening. Currently, the ongoing working with the various states of developing various systematic recommendations. We are working with COJ on fraud prevention, GIZ, T program regarding prevention activities for public education. The fifth one that we also focus is implementing of corruption and maladministration and malpractice on data analytics. This is one of the critical ones that we want to showcase and make sure that we have the data. That data we analyze so that we can have decision making. We can also see what are the patterns that are happening out there. The current progress is that a readiness assessment was conducted to gauge the level of readiness in terms of relevant infrastructure, software, and capacity that required the SIU to have. And we went even a further step to have SIU and CSIR MOU in place so that we can have that predictive risk modeling exercise in progress. So we are working closely with CSIR so that we can have understanding and also use their capacity and competencies when it comes to data analytics. We also engagement and data sharing with SAS, and we also concluded now a resource that is assisting us internally for data analytics. There's a lot of work, and that has already been started. And also we started with the project that we have. That we are looking at analyzing data currently in the organization. The other focus that is on our APP this year is to implementing measures to accelerate civil litigation. As you know, that the establishment and full functioning of the Special Tribunal Civil Litigation Case Assessment Committee in place, civil litigation strategy and turnaround plan being reviewed and developed respectively following the civil litigation of Imbizo. The tribunal is assisting us to fast track our cases. So this is one of the critical strategic focus, and also to have that civil litigation strategy and turnaround time plan so that we can improve on our turnaround time. We're also focusing on review SIU funding model, as we know that we got a portion from National Treasure, but we can also build as an organization. Currently, we have National Treasure has advised that SIU funding model should remain as it is at this point, but we're reviewing of the model will be considered in future. SIU is currently embarking on an operational Kokela initiative as part of addressing the debt. As we know that when we build other institution, they are not paying us, and then they pay late, and others, they are owing us a lot. So the organization has initiated the operational Kokela, meaning pay back what you're owing us, so that we can address, because we've got a lot of huge debt, which our finance CFO representative will highlight how much is owed by the other state institution to SIU. The other improvement that we look at is improving communication and stakeholder relations. We as SIU, the communication and stakeholder relations have drastically improved. As you know, you can see that we've got our social media and our page as well, intranet. We've got a Facebook page, so that we can increase visibility in the media and social media space, and also to improve communication on online platform, and also just people to understand what is SIU is all about for corporate identity. We also have to look at our corporate identity, the CI manual, which is talking about our corporate identity, and also public perception survey that was conducted last year in 2021, an action plan in place to address areas of improvement. So is ongoing, because we want people to understand and to communicate back to the community of the work that has been done by SIU. We also want to improving on SIU governance framework, meaning that as we're doing our business as SIU, they are very critical for us to look at the governance structures. So currently it's full operational. We had different committees that are sitting looking at a different aspect of the organization functionality. We had our executive committee, we had our audit committee, which is looking everything that has to do with the audit. We have risk committee. We also had ICT committee as one to improve on our ICT, and we have also human capital committee. And the finance committee has recently been established. So this year, it will be fully functioning so that we improve on our governance as an organization. We also, because we believe that for us to, as an organization, to perform, we are very performance-driven culture organization. The organization has also introduced individual performance management system so that everyone will be measured and monitored when it's coming to their performance, individual performance, which feed back into the organizational performance. On number 11, the reintroduction of an EPMO, that is where we're looking at relevant organizational structure review, the project management office in the organization, because there's a lot of projects that we are undertaking. So we want to make sure that it's well coordinated so that we can get a value out of every project that the organization is embarking on. The digital transformation, this is one of the critical things. I think our organization have learned that the IT is very critical for the business, especially if you want to perform, and also for your data securities. So in our digital transformation, the journey that we're looking at is making sure that our infrastructure is secured. We can have even the data that we want to analyze. We have that data warehouse capacity, which will be a game changer, because there's a lot of data that we have. And so that when we're looking at our future strategy and how we analyze the patterns in the anti-corruption, we will be able to utilize that data by making sure that we use also Internet of Things and also artificial intelligence to mine the information, to analyze the information. Number 13 is business development in provinces, to make sure that they have their stakeholders that are engaging in respective provinces. And the last one is the strengthening of employee value proposition. The organization is ongoing in innovative, where now we're taking care of our own employees, where we're looking at the value that we bring to them. The organization have really established organizational culture project that has been launched in December 22 and currently has rolled out since February and is ongoing for this APP that is tabled to make sure that the culture of the organization is well known, and making sure that people, they understand and live the vision of the organization. We had 3 SIU program. We had administration, which is
Ms. Lamini, Hi.
Yes, ma'am.
I indicated that you have limited time for your presentation, but I noticed that you spent most of it on your key strategic areas. But I'm not sure how you're going to then factor into, because we're interested in your budget and APP, but if you could perhaps maybe quickly go to that section and then deal with those matters. Thank you.
Okay. With our budgeted APP, the only thing that I can just highlight on program 1, nothing have been changed, but we just increase when we look at the governance control on outcome 1, and then where we want to have a clean audit, we have been having a clean audit in the past 6 years. We want to make sure that we highlighted on that. And when it comes to stakeholder, as I've mentioned, as our part of our progress, we want to having a stakeholder engagement campaign this year 8. On the program 2, we still keep the rand value potential. So this year we're looking at rand value of asset to be recovered about 400 million. And we're looking at rand value, actual cash, and with the figures that are there. What I can just maybe highlight to the committee and to the members is on the program 2, when we're looking at our market data, where we included a number of, just go to program 3, which is the one that I want us to look at the new indicators, which is in program 3. We added the lifestyle audit, which is a new indicator we didn't have in the previous year. We want to conduct a lifestyle audit as per request received from state institution, which is something that has been really been added in us. And we also looking at a number of anti-corruption forum meeting convey for vulnerable sectors. Those are the 2 indicators that I will add the committee to know that has been added in our APP in this financial year for us to improve and also to play our role as SIU in the anti-corruption sector. And then I'll give for budget, Ntombi to take us through to the budget overview.
Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members. I'll quickly take you through the budget overview. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. On this slide, it's just basically the budget split into the 3 programs that we have. With the major budget, which is 62% going to program 2, which is basically where the core of the SIU is, and which makes sense for us to allocate, a chunk of the budget to that program. Administration is where support is, and then the 3rd one, which is market data analytics, it's new and is still at a development stage. So hopefully in the coming years, it will be fully fleshed. Next slide. And then on this slide is just basically the split of the budget into expenses and revenue in detail. And for the 2023-24 financial year, the total revenue is 1 billion as compared to the total expenses of 1.1. And we have budgeted for a deficit which has been approved by National Treasury on condition that we fund the deficit ourselves, and on condition that in the 25-26 financial year, we reach, we don't have a surplus or a deficit. And those are the conditions which were given to us. We break even in the 25-26 financial year. That was the second condition given to us. And on the funding, we're going to be using the surplus funds that we have in our coffers to fund the deficits. Next slide, ma'am. This slide talks about the debt book, which we have at the end of February, which is 827 million. And it just shows the split of who owes us, a lot in the spheres of government that we have. We have 31% for public entities, which are the most indebted to us. Next slide. This is just a breakdown of the debt in the provinces and the spheres of government. Next slide. As Ms. Tenjiwe has indicated in her introduction, finance or the SIU has embarked on a project called Project Kokela, which mainly aims to recover the debt that the various state institutions owe us. And we have seen some fruits from the project, because if we compare what we collected at the end of March 2022, we collected 236 million compared to what we've collected in the current financial year up to the second week in May, which is about 341 million. And then we've noted that face-to-face meetings with the various institutions have helped us a lot. To that extent, we've decided that the project plan that we have initially outlined needs to be shifted so that we have enough time to have these face-to-face meetings, because they also take time to get the stakeholders in one meeting. Next slide. So this is basically an outline of Project Kokela to see the amended plan that we have in place, which we intend to keep to the deadlines that have been specified. Next slide. These are just the payments that we had at the end of February. But as I've indicated before, we have collected more than that up to end of March and the first few months of the financial year. Next slide. This is just a breakdown of who has been paying us up to the end of Feb. Next slide. And then this slide is just to indicate that on average, we have an increase of 83% in proclamations at the end of February 2023. However, the headcount over the MTF will be increasing by only 5.6%, which basically means that we are being conservative of the headcount increase over the MTF. And then in this one, I'll only talk to the funding model, where we're saying that National Treasury has indicated that the funding model will remain the same for now, but then in the short term or long term, that can still be reviewed again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for, let me say, those three presentations. I think before I hand over to honorable members, perhaps I think if the department could perhaps also speak to what was announced by the president in SONA with regard to the NPA amendment bill, which will establish the investigative directorate where this process is. If you could perhaps maybe just highlight that, and then DM, I'm not sure if you have anything to say, then we'd get members to engage the three presentations.
Chair, look, let me do that one as well. There is a draft bill which is basically dealing with the issue of establishing the investigating directorate as a standalone, as a permanent entity, not reliant on proclamation. The intention would be to bring it to cabinet as soon as possible, so that it can be introduced into the National Assembly in next month. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
As far as other issues, look, let's see what the submissions are, what the questions are. And just to the Honourable Motsumai, he was complaining that people weren't showing their faces, but he was only showing a photograph, which was a bit difficult to work out. So if we meet him on the street, we won't know if it's him. Thanks, Chair.
I'm sure Honourable Motsumai is well known, DM. Honourable members, over to yourself. If you have any questions and comments that you would like to pose. I would also, depending on how many members wish to interact, then perhaps we would then ask that we ask a few questions, and perhaps if there's additional time, we then come back to yourselves. Okay, I see there's Honorable Maleka, Honorable Bartlett, and Honorable Mikolakis for now. All right, in that order, Honorable Maleka, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Do you hear me, Chairperson?
Yes, we do. Please continue.
Oh.
We hear you. Please continue.
Okay, Chairperson, good morning to DM officials, members, and our support staff. Chairperson, I want to raise a question on slide 27. In the upgrading of courts, we know that there have been some challenges with the DPW. So how far has the department come in regards to upgrade, and what are some of the remaining challenges? My second question, Chairperson, on slide 55, on to Thuthuzela Care Centers, what are the challenges and successes related to the establishment and functioning of the care centers, and how would you describe staff morale, and what systems are in place to ensure staff and working in the healthy environment? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maleka. Honorable Bartlett.
Sorry, Chair, for not switching on my video. Chair, I just have two questions, three questions on slide 9. I'm asking the committee an update on the progress made in respect of the GBV-F program. Can you please give us something in respect just to understand that? And then on slide 20, Chair, what are some of the challenges in promoting women into senior positions as per the sorry, Chair, as per the first output on that slide? And then my last question on slide 25. Sorry, Chair. On slide 25, the public awareness campaigns, what does it cover? And what are the successes and or the challenges that they're experiencing? And then furthermore, do these campaigns include informing the public of the changes to the gender-based violence legislation? And how would you describe gender implementation, Chairperson, of these pieces of legislation by all the stakeholders? Sorry, Chair, I'm not sure was it audible enough.
Are you done, Honorable Bartlett? Because I thought you would. I would give you some time to catch your breath and then come back to you. But if you're done, that's fine. Honorable Mikolakis.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Chair, yes, I only have a few questions. The first one is, I believe that the APP was tabled a bit late. Can the department perhaps tell us what the reasons were for the late tabling of this report? And then secondly, I think a big problem for the department itself is not within its control, but it's actually the maintenance of court buildings that lies with the Department of Public Works. The service level agreement that was sent to us, I would like to ask, when will this service level agreement become effective? And will it address the backlog that there is with regards to the maintenance of court buildings that we currently are experiencing? Sorry. Linked to that is, I think this must have been taken up in the portfolio committee as well, but a big problem for our courts obviously is the problem of load shedding. Most of the courts that I visit during load shedding completely have to close for various reasons. How is this being mitigated currently, if you also take into consideration the backlog that the courts are currently experiencing? And has there been some agreement or discussion with Public Works to perhaps see how we can get courts off the grid, perhaps, or make sure that alternative arrangements are made to mitigate the impact of load shedding on them? Then just with regards to the Master's Office problems as well, the Deputy Minister did allude to some of that in his introduction. I get queries constantly about the backlog at the Master's Office, but they only, our research that we received shows that they've only dealt with about 7.85% of the backlog, which was promised to be cleared by December 2022. And I would just like to hear the department's comments on that. Why, firstly, was the backlog not dealt with as promised within the deadline at the time given? Why only almost 8%? And if that is the current pace at which the backlog is being dealt with, what are the projections, or when does the department foresee that this backlog and everything that comes with it, the growing backlog as a consequence, when will that be dealt with effectively? Chairperson, then just with regards to the Deputy Minister's other comment with regards to the modernization and digitization of the systems currently, is the department confident that this service will be provided effectively by SETA? I personally do not have much confidence in their abilities to provide such computer systems effectively, and when they do, I'm not very confident that these systems always have the necessary security linked to them. We're dealing with a lot of sensitive information within the department. What has the department put in place to ensure that, firstly, the services that are provided by SETA in this regard is effective, and that it's also secure when we deal with citizens' information? And then just finally, it's also a comment made by the Deputy Minister in his introduction, was that the National Assembly had some issues with the targets that were ultimately then changed and adapted upwards. My question just with regards to that is, how has the upward change or adjustment of these targets, how has that affected your planning, and what has the department then done to ensure that based on the changes in your targets, you are still able to reach these higher targets? Thank you very much, Chair. Those are my questions for now. Thanks.
No, thank you very much, honourable members, for those questions. I'm not seeing any other honourable member on the platform wanting to engage. I think that being said, I think members have covered a few of my issues, but perhaps if I can maybe also raise a few. I think with regard to the committee's engagements with IPID and the South African Police Services, there are various incidents where the NPA declines to prosecute. Perhaps what are the main reasons for declining to prosecute, and what is the nature of the NPA's relationship with other stakeholders in these cases, and what, if any, are the challenges? Secondly, with regard to the state capture cases, I think that's on your slide 73, if I'm not mistaken. And the indication is that there is progress, and I think we're happy to see that there is progress. But how would you describe your working relationship with other role players to ensure that state capture cases are prosecuted? And what are some challenges experienced by both the NPA and SIU in respect of these cases? And maybe my last question would be around how would you describe the capacity and resource challenges within the department, the NPA and the SIU. How will any challenges currently experienced be effectively managed moving forward, particularly in respect of ensuring success in state capture cases and in respect of South Africa's grey listing? That is the work in relation to money laundering and terrorism. I think those are largely the issues from my side. Yeah, let me then hand over to, before that, I think I would just want maybe to look at the issue of, I think Honorable Mikalakis raised it to some extent, but just with regard to and I'll use the Limpopo High Court as an example. I think what was being indicated with regard to that was around the structure of the building, especially with regard to the high water table that's affecting the structural, I guess, integrity of that. But perhaps if you could indicate to us what is actually happening with the Limpopo High Court, whether the building is going to be condemned, etc., or whatever steps you take, what is the possibility then also in terms of fruitless and wasteful expenditure on this building, assuming that it would be condemned? I think over to you, maybe GM, and then you direct how the team would then respond to the questions.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to everybody for the questions. Look, the bulk of them are for the Department of Justice, so the acting DDG will allocate them. And obviously your questions, Chair, you've got questions to the NPA, and the questions from the Honourable Maleka on the TCCs would be going to the NPA. I think mine is really just Honourable Mikalakis's point about the APP being tabled late. I'm not in, well, it was tabled I think at the end of April. I'm not sure whether that was within, so that's later than usual within the terms or not. The problem was unhappiness. I mean, I can't remember when I got the draft, but I was not that happy with some of the narrative, and then also the reduction of the targets, or some of the targets. So that took some time. Minister was wanting the issues addressed. So as I said, I don't think we got it that early, but the word delay is caused by myself and to some extent the minister over the narrative. Usually we attend a strategic planning workshop of the department, but it was scheduled at a time when neither the minister nor I could attend this year. So that I think also contributed to the matter. But it's the department's annual performance plan, but the minister is the executive authority. So it's that kind of linkage. But I think as far as the rest of the points, let me refer to the acting DDG and then the NDPP. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you.
Sorry. There was one point that Honourable Mikalakis asked, and that was the adjustments. Okay, that's the department, how they're going to factor it in. Maybe the department can also, I think the original APP's been withdrawn, and has the amended one been tabled? But the question was on how is it affecting the program. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. I've done a brief overview of the questions. There were quite a few questions on infrastructure, and I'll request DDG Mamecha to deal with those questions together with Mr. Isaacs insofar as it impacts on the operation of the courts. Then there were questions on GBV. Mr. Isaacs will assist with that. There was a question on public awareness and its promotion that I think relates to constitutional development. There was also a question on backlogs in courts and backlogs in the master's office. Rodney Isaacs and Acting DDG Roberts will deal with those questions. There was a sixth question on the issue of CETA services, which I didn't quite catch. It related to the effectiveness of CETA when dealing with personal information. I'm not quite sure whether we got that right, but if the Honorable Member, Michelle Lakis, can please repeat that question so that the officials can attend to the answers. But for now, I think we'll deal with that in the end. But if Connie, if you may start, and then we'll move on down the line as indicated. Thank you.
Ms. Pillay, before you continue, perhaps, I think the question asked by Honorable Mikulakis was around the modernization and digitization of systems and whether the service provided with CETA in relation to that would be effective. If I'm not mistaken, Honorable Mikulakis, that was your question. If I got it wrong, you let me know. But yeah, over to you, Ms. Pillay.
Thank you very much for that, Chairperson. Connie, I know you were engaged in those processes and engagement with CETA. If you can also deal with that question. May I ask the DDG Mamecha come in, please? Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson and the members of the Select Committee, and the DM and the Acting DG and the colleagues. I will start with the question that related to the load shedding in terms of what are we doing as a department to ensure that the courts are running during the load shedding. Chairperson, we have currently installed about 139 generators in our courts, and we are continuing with the process, with the project of installing those generators. We are working very closely with the DPWI, and we are also using the 1 million delegation that was devolved to us by the DPWI to buy some of those generators. We are also working on a term contract for provision and maintenance of alternative energy sources, because in some courts we are considering installing the solar panels, and some of them have already started with those solar panels and other alternative energy sources. So for maintenance, as I've mentioned, that the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure have increased our 100,000 threshold on our delegations to 1 million, and the DFI for the department has already been revised to give court managers and the regions more responsibility to deal with the maintenance. So the department has never run short of maintenance or facilities management budget. We have always had a budget, and it is the responsibility of the regions to ensure that the courts are maintained, and they are using the 1 million delegation to do that. But in certain instances where it requires major renovations and repairs, the Department of Public Works appoints service providers to assist with that. I am aware that in certain courts, we find that some of the service providers are not performing, and they will be put in mora, and then that will actually delay the whole process of finishing the repairs and maintenance. But the budget is available, and the delegations are there and approved for implementation. There was also a question that related to the SLA as to when will it be effective. The SLA will become effective once it is signed by both parties, as it outlines all the processes to implement different programs and how payments will be made. So the SLA is currently being vetted by our legal services, and it will be sent to DPWI for sign off. We have about 4 programs currently and one is for refurbishment and repairs, and the second one is upgrading and additions. where it is necessary, where in certain instances the courts will need to be extended or expanded in terms of courtrooms. And we also have another program that deals with the plant maintenance. And there's also a new program that deals with total facilities management, more especially on the courts, the 4 courts that we just finished, the Boyson Court, the Devon Point Court, the Limpopo High Court, and the Mpumalanga High Court. The Department of Public Works and Infrastructure is assisting in putting in place a total facilities management solution in those projects. So the other question was relating to the Limpopo High Court. Yes, indeed, Limpopo High Court is sitting on a waterbed, and I think the whole of Polokwane is sitting on a waterbed. So what we are doing currently is that we are pumping out the water underground, and they are already occupational certificates and engineer certificates that are asked to occupy that court. So the court will not be condemned. We will continuously be pumping the water out of the underground. The maintenance in terms of, I've dealt with the maintenance issue. So the issue of the SETA, yes, indeed, we always have a problem with SETA, and it's not only us, other departments are also having problems with the delays that SETA has. But since the appointment of the new MD of SETA, our DG and ourselves have met with the new MD, and we have agreed that they should send us their plan of action on how they are going to be expediting most of our projects that are sitting with them, because most of our procurement is sitting with SETA. But also just to mention that on our own as department, we, without necessarily having to rely on the cloud of SETA, we have finalized the building of the rebuilding of this data center. And we are finalizing now the migration of all our business applications into the new data center. We have just done successfully migrated the Moja Pay and the CMS, and the other business applications are in progress. And while building that the data center, we have also included our private art cloud in that data center. So yeah, we will watch the space and see how SETA will be improving after the commitment that they have made with us. And just to mention also on the issue of the DPWI, we will be having a meeting with the portfolio committee together with the DPWI to just iron out on the issues that are also delaying in terms of maintenance of the courts that have been identified. So we are hopeful that that meeting will also bear fruit in terms of moving forward with the DPWI. Thank you very much, Chair.
Can the acting DDG Court Services come in on the questions around GBV matters backlogs in courts, please? Mr. Isaacs.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I have my mic on and I also have my camera on. So I hope I am able to be seen. Oh no, I think I must open up this thing here on top. There we are. Here we are. Okay. The part that we are required to speak on in this respect is the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. And important to mention is to address the systemic challenges that have resulted in maybe an inadequate response to the management of GBV cases, particularly domestic violence, sexual offenses, child homicide, human trafficking, and other related matters. Now, one of our key strategic activities is to improve access to survivor support services through a victim-centric criminal justice service that is sensitive to and that meet their needs. So humanizing service delivery and address unequal and inequitable spread of victim services. By this, we developed the safety planning for survivors of domestic violence. We developed phase 2, the online web portal, where applications for domestic violence can be submitted through, and people are not necessarily have to be subjected to the trauma of having to go to courts. And then we developed in addition to this Domestic Violence Amendment Act, we also developing the integrated electronic repository. And that is where all the past and current and future orders will be stored. Then it is also the responsibility of the department to ensure that more intermediaries are appointed, not only because we need them in our sexual offences courts, but also because they are now having to appear in non-criminal proceedings. And assist at least. Then we conduct trauma debriefing for these intermediaries as well. Then we strengthen the capacity within the criminal justice system to address the impunity and facilitate justice to the GBVF survivors or GBV survivors. Resource the infrastructure and human capacity to facilitate effective service delivery. Then in this manner, we establish sexual offences courts or more sexual offences courts, and which does appear in our key performance indicators and our annual performance plan. Then the development of phase 3 to 6 of the Femicide Watch. I think the Department of Justice is the lead in pillar 3 of the Femicide Watch. And this is done in order for continuous research, continuous monitoring, in order to assist us to prepare and develop appropriate interventions as society changes from generation to generation. Then we have the fast track, the vetting process of the National Register for Sexual Offenders. We have people that need work, people that want to work in places where children are schooled and in our schools, in our hospitals, etc. And we then have set key performance indicators to ensure and support such applications of those certificates. We then, to amend the legislation relating to GBVF areas, build onto legislative reforms initiated under the Emergency Response Action Plan. So we developed the development of a category of crimes constituting GBVF. Developed the category of the GBVF crimes in the new South African law. So that also falls under the monitoring and research of pillar 3. We then further, Chairperson, the finalization of the prevention and combating of hate crimes and hate speech bill. Also, so we facilitate the finalization of the bill by Parliament. We contribute to those processes. The overhaul of the Criminal Procedure Act to make it victim-centric, including the review of the bail provisions. And we know our new amendment to the bail in respect of such crimes is that there are no bail from a policeman or no bail from a prosecutor, but it has to go and appear in court, and the merits of the matter will have to be determined. Then to finalize the Traditional Courts Bill, thus part of our law to look after our GBV but people also plays a big role in the Traditional Courts Bill. Then determine the policy direction on the legislative framework governing the sale of sexual services and related activities, and this relates to the sex workers legislation, Chairperson. That basically is the plan which we have presented for this year in terms of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Rodney. I'm looking for Advocate Lotz. I'm not sure if you are joining from another device. Mr. Lotz, are you online?
Yes. Good morning, acting DG. I am connected. I'm using a colleague's device because my devices are all there's a challenge of me connecting. So I am here. May I proceed?
Yes, please.
Okay, no, thank you very much, and good morning to the Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members and colleagues. I'm going to address just the question that related to public awareness. My understanding is that in terms of unpacking the question really, or in responding to the question, the department in the main continuously does constitutional and human rights education to advance constitutionalism, human rights, and the rule of law. When we conduct public education in the main, we aim to basically go out to educate the public about the Constitution. And invariably, in educating the public about the Constitution, will also be a range of pieces of legislation, a range of departmental services that the public need to be aware about in terms of accessing those services within the department. But we also extend to other areas where we conduct campaigns in terms of dealing and addressing issues relating to xenophobia and other intolerances. We also go out to educate the public about the use of equality courts, about the Equality Act, and also the importance really of utilizing the various legal services that are provided for by the department. And lastly, I must also emphasize that we do continuously work with a wide range of stakeholders, including your Chapter 9 institutions, such as the Human Rights Commission and others. And we also do work on the ground with your civil societies and other key stakeholders. So our work is quite continuous. It's quite, it evolves all the time. But to directly answer your question, we do focus also to a large extent with regards to the services that are provided for in the various service points, in the various regions and provincial offices, in as far as members of the public accessing those particular services. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Advocate Lotz. May I request Mr. Roberts from the acting DDG for the Master's Office to please deal with the last question on the backlogs in the Master's Office. Thank you.
Sorry, acting DDG, she's the acting Chief Master. Might be at a DDG level, but it's Chief Master.
Can I continue? Thank you, Acting DG. Good morning to honorable members and good morning to colleagues. With regards to the backlog in the Master's Office, the target was 100% last year, but unfortunately we couldn't reach the 100%. We only reached 18.65% according to our records and not 7.55%. As it was indicated earlier on. The challenges in that respect was that in terms of the IT, that was actually giving us a challenge in terms of downtime and network problems, connectivity. So it was not achievable, but we are thinking that as per DDG Mameja's response with regards to the interface with CETA, we're hoping that those issues will be mitigated against. And also the issue of load shedding as well, because it has had an impact with regards to us attending to the backlog matters. But we are also working hand in hand with our facilities in order to ensure that we have an uninterrupted power supply so that we can be able to attend to those matters. As part of mitigation, facilities will be assisting us in that regard. So the target for this year, we said it would be based on 75%, but we are saying that as we modernize our services, we are of the view that we'll be able to address the backlog issues by the end of the financial year. We are hoping, because at the moment we have actually piloted the Deceased Online system, at Master's Office, Johannesburg and Durban. And we're going to also do it in Cape Town before we actually we roll it out to all the Master's Offices nationwide. So we're thinking that, by the 1st of September, when Master's Office Cape Town also comes into the pilot program, we'll be able slowly, gradually, we'll be able to attend to those backlog matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chairperson, those are the responses from our side. If there's anything we've left out, if we can come back in, but for now, I think we will hand over to the NPA to deal with their questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members. May we proceed? Honorable Chair.
Please continue.
Thank you very much. If I could hand over to colleagues in the NPA, I'm not sure who go first, but Sidi Modise. Sidi, are you ready to deal with the resourcing questions?
Yes, ma'am, I'll do that. Thank you.
Please go ahead. Thank you. And please put your camera on. Thank you.
On the issue of resources, we embarked since 2019 on a recruitment drive, which also continued in the past financial year. And in the past financial year, we were able to add an additional 1,000 employees. We also were able which started in the last financial year. Currently, we have about 344 aspirants that we are training that will form part of the full headcount in the NPA. And we also, in the previous year, added about 700 young professionals to the rank of the NPA. But as much as these numbers we have been increasing, we're also aware that capacity is not only related to increasing the numbers, because we can only do so much increasing the numbers. But we also, at the same time, we're looking at capacity in terms of skills. And that's when we did the capacity enhancement initiative, where we did a study to determine what are the required capacity. And once we have determined the required capacity, then we're able to measure our prosecutors against that required capacity that we did through a study or a comparative study with other jurisdictions, particularly on dealing with commercial crimes. So we are now in the process where, because we know where the gaps are lying, the focus now is on plugging those gaps as we have determined. And we have a number of interventions that we have put in place to deal with those gaps, in addition to your normal training that will be undertaken. We also have a mentoring program, and we also are looking at job pairing of some sort, so that people gain the required capacity that they need to be able to perform their job, particularly on the issue of commercial crimes and corruption. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Tsiri. If I can hand over to Advocate Anton du Plessis. Anton, I know you were about to travel. Are you able to connect? And also, I'm not sure if you'll be able to add to what Tsiri's just mentioned. There you go. Please go ahead.
Thank you, NDPP. Good morning, colleagues. Yes, I think the question, Tsiri covered the issues around broader capacity, and I'll just focus a little bit on the capacity specifically to deal with state capture matters. I know my colleague Andrea Johnson is also on the call, and she'll be responding to some specific matters in relation to the ID. But as you know, and I think was mentioned in the presentation, the NPA was given an additional budget allocation under the MTF, particularly in relation to state capture. We've invested a significant amount of effort and funding into capacitating the ID. The ID's numbers have grown significantly over the last 12 months, and there are a number of recruitments taking place at the moment. The crucial issue around our capacity for the ID speaks to the question that the Honourable Member Chairperson asked, or the issue raised around the bill for the ID's permanence, and the Deputy Minister gave an update on that. But that is going to be a crucial issue in terms of the kinds of capacity that we need. And I think Ms. Modise made the point, it's not just about numbers, but when it comes to state capture, it's very clear from the Zondo report and from the response from the president in October last year that a key component of this capacity relates to skills that the ID cannot currently bring in, because the legislation needs to be amended. It's not just about permanence, it's also about additional capacities that the ID will need. In particular, we're speaking about criminal investigative powers, and those powers, those capacities can only be brought in once the law has been amended. And once that is done, we'll be moving ahead very quickly. We've already started the OD process. Sorry about that. We've already started the process to move ahead with that. And that will involve bringing in, as we said, criminal investigative capacities, as well as additional digital and forensic analytical capacities. The capacity review initiative that that Ms. Modise spoke about has also given us a benchmark beyond the ID, but looking at the NPA's ability more broadly to prosecute high-level corruption matters. This is a really cutting-edge initiative that has given us a very clear sense of where capacities are needed, what the pipelines are required for getting us to that capacity. And colleagues, just the good news on it is that the assessment has shown that the NPA has a pretty high level of required basic skills and capacities to deal with most corruption cases. There are a couple of areas that have been identified, particularly in the context of cyber and money laundering, where we're going to be investing significantly, not just in training, but in mentoring programs, using the capacity of existing senior staff, and even using retired colleagues that can help us with a mentoring program. And then a very important issue around our capacity is linked to the discussion we've been having about our facilities. So one of the issues we found in our study is that there's not just a lack of capacities, but also the lack of an enabling environment that our prosecutors work in to be able to deliver on the pressing and the challenges that the prosecutors have in dealing with state capture matters. And we are going to be addressing that with the Department of Justice, because there are facility challenges, connectivity challenges, and a whole range of what we'll call environmental factors that are also affecting the ability of our prosecutors to deliver at the level that's needed. But be rest assured, colleagues, that we're using a very evidence-based approach to try and understand the capacities we need and how we can get those capacities. And we're very appreciative of the budget allocation that has been made to the NPA to do that. And the last point, NDPP, that I'll make is that we're also very aware of the fact that we're not going to be able to recruit all these skills into the NPA overnight. And we are going to have a look at a collaborative approach. So we do take a very collaborative approach to partnering with organizations that have the right skills and capacities. And of course, developing NPA's capacity in isolation or in a silo doesn't help. So through our various initiatives with the SAPS and with our other colleagues in the criminal justice value chain, we're also looking at how do we leverage our capacity building initiatives to make sure it aligns and dovetails with capacity building initiatives required within the broader value chain of the criminal justice system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anton. Advocate de Kock, are you ready to deal with questions relating to the NPS? And then after that, if Advocate Johnson, Andrea Johnson, can come in, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, NDPP. What we propose is that we'll deal with the issues around the Thuthuzela centers, and then Advocate Johnson will come in and deal with the questions specifically to the ID, and then I will deal at the end with other questions regarding stakeholder management and the FATF. So if I can hand over to Advocate Kari Gamwa, the Special Director for the soccer unit in the NPA. Thank you.
Good morning to the members of the Select Committee, as well as to the colleagues on the call this morning. I will respond to the questions on the Thuthuzela Care Centers. They are managed across the country by the NPA, specifically by the Sexual Offences and Community Affairs Unit of the NPA. So TCCs, as they are known, were introduced onto the South African landscape in 2001. Currently, as of 1 May 2023, there are 63 operational TCCs across the country. The latest one being the one at Jozini TCC in KZN, which became operational on 1 May this year. There are several challenges that the TCCs pose. But it is important to note that this TCC model is internationally recognized, and in South Africa is really the best basket of pretrial services available currently to GBV victims. But there are certain challenges. So with TCCs, currently, though we have 63, there are too few TCCs for us to be able to really service as many victims of GBV in this country. And this leaves some of our communities excluded. The expansion of the TCC footprint, however, has been hampered by the lack of a GBV-specific budget for building TCCs, and not just within NPA, but all government stakeholders. And why is this important? It's important because the TCCs are multi-sectoral in nature. And so we rely on the Department of Health, we rely on the Department of Social Development, we rely on the police to enable us to provide this basket of pretrial services to the victim. And so when we don't have budget for this expansion, it does hamper what we are trying to achieve with the TCCs. There's also a lack of space at existing public hospitals. So all our TCCs currently are on public hospital space. But again, we are forever competing with one another for space, and this too hampers the expansion of the TCCs, and a lack of space also hampers currently some of our operational TCCs, and we have to do all sorts of alternative and compromises in order for us to be able to still provide the best service for our communities. Many of our TCCs currently are housed in park homes, which had a lifespan of 5 years. Many of these have exceeded their lifespan, and so they also pose certain issues. The TCC location and services are still not well known enough currently for us to be able to really optimize the use of our TCCs. But what we have done, colleagues, is that we have really done much to try and address these challenges. And one of them has been that we forged relationships with the private sectors. We've have private sector partnerships, which have really helped us to increase the number of TCCs. You will recall that I think it's been at 55 for a very long time. And over the last 2.5 years, we've moved to 63 quite rapidly. And so we have gone to the private sector, and we have financial commitment to increase the TCCs to at least 70. And so we've also looked at how do we find more space for the TCCs rather than relying purely on the hospital space that's in existence now. And so we've moved on to brick and mortar buildings through the help of the private sector. We are busy replacing some of our park homes with modular homes, which are just really an upgrade to the park home. And we've also looked at hybrid TCCs where we link with existing forensic clinics, for example, to combine and pool our resources. We've also gone into the mining sector who have GBV centers, and we are negotiating with them to potentially convert some of these centers in the mining sector into fully fledged TCCs. Around visibility, we've really gone through media campaigns, through social media, through the private sector marketing, increase the visibility and accessibility of the TCCs, because we maintain that if the TCCs, if people know about them, they will access the services. So you may have seen that there are the Tutuzela logo and the NPA logo on the SPAR bags. And this is, and with an email address of the TCCs, and already we are getting more and more people connecting with us, looking for help, seeking advice around GBV, using that email address. So we have also, through one of the cell phone service providers, looked at how we can get TCC messaging going through their systems in order for us to really enhance the visibility of the TCCs, but also the services of the TCCs. The successes, we've had quite a few successes. The most important success for me has been the fact that we've been able to improve the conviction rate from 60% in 2010 to currently at 76%. Just last year, 34,456 people were able to get services at our sites across the country. We have been able to really also enhance our services that we offer. So initially, when the TCCs were introduced, they were introduced as an anti-rape strategy. We have now broadened that mandate, and we now are able to service all GBV victims at our centers. We have rolled out what we call the domestic violence protocol, which will assist in us being able to assist a victim that now enters our TCCs to obtain a protection order, to apply for a protection order. We've really enhanced access for the physically disabled at our TCCs. And then we've also engaged with the deaf community, so that soon when they enter a TCC, a video will be played for them, which is in sign language, for them to understand why they are at the TCCs, what services we offer, who they will engage with, and just create that safe space so that there's an understanding. The TCCs, we are hoping with all this visibility that we have around the TCCs, that it will really increase the number of people that will enter our TCCs, so that we are really able to optimize the services to our GBV victims. Public awareness.
Bonnie, sorry to interrupt you. Just in the interest of time, if you could crisply, deal with the other issues. Thank you.
Yes. I was about to say just around public awareness, there was a question around public awareness. The NPA has made the necessary adjustments and amendments to its own training manuals so that it speaks to the latest GBV legislation around domestic violence and sexual offenses. We have debriefing with our EWP, there was a question around staff morale. We've really gone and linked up with our own EWP internally so that we have scheduled debriefing sessions, and we've also engaged with the private sector to amplify that in addition. Around training, as I said, soccer has its own training unit, and we ensure annual training of our prosecutors across all aspects of GBV. This is, of course, also amplified by our community prosecutions initiative, which is also really geared, 13 of the sites focusing on GBV, and that is how we are able to really communicate with our community so that they are also au fait with whatever needs for them to be empowered as a community to be able to address GBV, either as a victim or someone assisting someone else. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Advocate Bonnie Kari-Gamble. And Honorable Chair, just to mention that the Community Prosecution Initiative is a very important one in terms of the NPA engaging with communities. And there's a lot that's going on there. In the interest of time, we can't say more about it, but I think it may be something that the community might want, this committee might want to get more information on, that we'll be happy to deal with and to send perhaps in writing. And the other issue is to say, as Advocate Kari-Gamble has mentioned, that if it was not for the assistance of the private sector, we will not be able to really expand the footprint of the TCCs in I think rather exponentially, given that it was at 55 for a long time, and in about 2.5 years, we've had 7 more new ones. And that is really only because we're able to engage with private sector that is giving us a lot of in-kind support to assist in this initiative. Andrea Johnson, Advocate Johnson, can I ask you to please come in?
Thank you, NDPP, honorable members, honorable chair. Just very briefly, yes, the ID is making progress on matters. I think that if one goes back to the period 1 April to 30 September of last year, we enrolled 9 seminal matters. Of note is that in December, we embarked on what we call an alternate dispute resolution mechanism, where we engaged with an entity and we were able to recoup 2.553 billion that went straight into the criminal asset recovery account. Of course, one would expect us to be making more progress, and I do believe we can. It's just that in terms of capacity, we were only now recently in the past 3 months been able to recruit properly financial investigators and prosecutors. That gives us then the ability, Honorable Chair and members, to amplify our work, to work with more speed, but we then still remain hampered because we are unable, unfortunately, to recruit criminal investigators. I think the committee is keenly aware that we do await the amendment to the NPA Act in terms of the permanence and powers of the ID. And so we are therefore reliant, as we currently are, on the duty reassigned or seconded personnel, 12 of them from the DPCI and 4 of them from IPID. That in itself will give you a clear indication that if one looks at the volume of work within the Zondo Commission, the Party Commission, the Nugent Commission, and any other high-level corruption matters that are referred to our space, we really do have a limited capacity and capability in terms of our criminal investigators. Another avenue that we are exploring so that we are able to speed up investigations is looking at data analysts. Honorable members, the volumes of data that the investigators and prosecutors have to go through are quite alarming. And so what we need is a very specialized but somewhat rare skill in the public service is data analytics, and data analysts who actually understand what it is they have to look for and the kind of product that they have to send out. We are looking at public-private partnerships, and we are looking at other avenues of being able to recruit this capability, because it really is the kind of resource that will change the game in terms of how quickly and effectively we are able to focus our investigations and prosecutions in terms of getting to the data, the right data, and doing that on time. With regards, Advocate du Plessis did indicate that in terms of our criminal investigators, once we have our powers, I have to say, honorable members and chair, that we will be able to then really change the landscape of the output. We are keenly aware that the country would like our progress to be more speedy and more effective. Unfortunately, as it stands, our criminal investigative capacity is that which holds us somewhat back. The last aspect in terms of how we engage with other stakeholders, more pertinently with other law enforcement agencies, especially with the SIU, the DPCI, the broader SAPS, the Financial Intelligence Center, SARS, and partners in the private sector, we really have built our relationships. We are able to leverage those partnerships. I have to say, Honorable Chair and members, that we have worked smoothly, including with the State Capture Commission and also with Professor Itumeleng Mosala. We have a very cordial working relationship with the Commission in terms of us still being able to access the data that we require. But when it comes to the stakeholder engagements, I must say that for the first time in a long time, there is actually a common understanding in terms of what is required to deal with the high levels of corruption. But based on the current challenges we have, we are all trying to assist one another so that we all achieve our objectives. That is where I end then with my feedback. Thank you very much, NDPP and Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Advocate Johnson. Advocate de Kock.
Thank you very much, NDPP. Good afternoon, or good morning again to the members, or good afternoon to the members. of the committee and Honorable Chair. So I will just deal with the first question raised by the Chair in terms of where the MPA declines to prosecute, and then also the question of the relationship with other stakeholders, in particular the SIU and the police. Firstly, just to indicate that we've got an excellent working relationship with all of the law enforcement agencies. And in fact, as far as the grey listing question you have posed, the MPA coordinates the activities of law enforcement agencies to ensure that we address the deficiencies as identified by the FATF in our money laundering system as a whole. So as far as our working relationship with the SIU is concerned and the DPCI, the SAPS, in December of last year, we entered into a MOU with all of these role players to strengthen the manner in which we work with the SIU matters and to ensure that SIU matters, once referred to the MPA, receives the necessary prioritization within the MPA and the DPCI through our SCCU, our Special Commercial Crimes units. So that work is in progress. We will feed back to our role players in terms of decision making, but in all of the national priority work, whether it's through the SIU, whether it's through the DPCI, or through the IID, the prosecutors and the investigators work very closely together. And we follow an approach called prosecutor-guided investigations. And in the IID, we follow an approach called prosecutor-led investigations, which means that these role players, when the prosecutor ultimately makes the decision, if the decision is not to prosecute, then all the role players will be involved in the decision and understand the decision that is taken. So I think as far as all our priority cases are concerned, that is the model that we have been working on, and that model has matured. And then to reinforce all of that work that we do have the task force that has been reported on before to Parliament, and the task force coordinates the work of law enforcement agencies with the IID in relation to the Zondo recommendations. And the IID has expressed some of the progress and some of the challenges in regard to that work. But I think the important message is that we're working effectively together with the resources, and where we have limited resources, we try to pool our resources in the best possible way. And we are identifying cases in order to prioritize matters for enrollment. Over and above this, recently we have received further directives to identify new matters as far as corruption is concerned for enrollment. So we will work with all our partners to ensure that we can achieve that kind of directive. Then finally, as far as the grey listing is concerned, as I've indicated, the MPA does play a significant role in a coordination around the work of law enforcement on the plan. There's a lot of work that is currently happening, and we work very closely with the National Treasury that leads our response in terms of the FATF grey listing issues. The National Treasury also then assists with coordination through the interdepartmental committee where all DGs relevant to this work sits. And that is ultimately where the progress is monitored as far as the implementation of our response. So the law enforcement agencies have developed an action plan. The action plan speaks to the key strategic outcomes that were identified by the FATF in terms of deficiencies. And the bulk of this speaks to how we are going to approach serious and complex money laundering investigations and prosecutions. So where we are currently with this in terms of our coordination is the identification of our existing cases that qualify in terms of serious and complex money laundering. We also are developing a database that we can track all these matters and all new matters in terms of the progress that we are going to make. And then we are also looking at asset recovery in terms of the key areas that we have to work in. And finally, in terms of the terror financing, we are also examining all of the matters that qualify in terms of the terror financing space to ensure that those cases are speedily investigated. And we also have a requirement of joint training to ensure that all law enforcement agencies are trained in terms of the new legislation and amendments to the Pactadara legislation and other key legislation. So overall, there's a lot of work happening, and coordination with the financial sector is also well established. And we're working closely with the regulatory authorities, the Financial Intelligence Center, the Reserve Bank, the Financial Conduct Authority, and other authorities that have the responsibility to ensure that we identify risks within the system and that we can refer for investigation and prosecution those matters that needs investigation and prosecution. So thank you. I think those are the areas that I thought were still outstanding. So I've covered those. I hand back to you, NDPP. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Advocate de Kock, and Honourable Chair, honourable members. Just to clarify, Advocate de Kock said that they've received a directive to identify more impactful corruption matters, and just to clarify that it was from the National Director, not an external source. Honourable Chair, honourable members, that covers the questions. I'm not sure if there's anything further that the committee or the chair would like the NPA to address. Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you. From the side of the SIU, would you want to make a comment, especially in terms of the question asked around capacity and resource challenges? I'm going to also throw in another question as well. This is in relation to what has been identified as one of your most significant risks, which is in relation to threats to investigators and whistleblowers. I know that you have some mitigation measures in place to manage this risk, but perhaps also give us an indication on how effective is your internal integrity unit in ensuring the safety of whistleblowers and investigators, and do you also coordinate with the SAPS and the NPA Witness Protection Program? If you could perhaps just respond to those two areas. After that, I'm not sure if I missed it, DM, the question with regard to the challenges in promoting women into senior positions, as well as there was a second one. I think it had to do with staff morale, for that matter. Yeah, I think that's all from my side, and I don't, members haven't given an indication whether they would want to do a follow-up, but I take it that you have responded to most of the issues that have been asked. I see Honourable Dodovo raising his hand. Honourable Dodovo, did you want to add something?
Yes, thank you very much, Honourable Chair. I indicated that I had a problem of load shedding, but I listened to most of the presentations. It was at a point where when SIU was presenting its financials that I got cut, and I had a number of questions to ask. If you allow me, I can do that without really repeating what other members have asked, because I missed some of the questions as they were posing them.
Please continue, Honourable Dodovo, but can I just propose that we are running a bit short on time, so if you can just be to the point. Thanks.
Yes, I'll try to do that, Honourable Chair. I was looking at the targets and the outputs set by the NPA in relation of what they want to achieve this year. And I was a bit concerned with regard to those, because my concern centers around the fact that there's been a delay in respect of the prosecution of the high-profile cases, what they call the priority cases. I'm raising this because, as NDPP indicated, there are issues around state capture, which for me are very, very serious. They've got to be followed up quite appropriately. And the question is whether they would meet those particular targets. For example, 2 years ago, there were issues around the interministerial task team in the Northwest. There were 95 cases which were on the table, and most of them had been directed to the NDPP or the NPA for decision. And up to this stage, little has been done in respect to that particular area. I would want to know what could be the problems with regard to expeditiously attending to these issues. About 2 weeks ago, I saw in the media circulating the fact that the SIU had indicated that it has submitted many, many cases to the NPA, and it is, if the NPA doesn't prosecute or it doesn't follow up those particular issues, it is out of the hands of the SIU. And I'm raising this question around that particular background to say, when the director came in 3 years ago, she indicated a lot of issues which were impediments, which I understood that there were vacancies to be filled. There were systemic problems within the NPA that needed to be dealt with, especially which were occasioned by state capture. She needed to ensure that she fills up key positions, including prosecutors. And my view, and please correct it if I'm wrong, but I want to hear this because it is my concern that the process to prosecute is very, very slow. And it's a concern that a lot of people in many quarters are raising. And I want to understand what could be the problem in terms of expeditiously attending to that particular issue. That's the first question, Honorable Chair. I've got only two. The second question relates to the South African Law Commission or Law Review Commission. We did receive a presentation last year from the commission, and we raised a number of issues regarding to the laws, that there are many, many laws that do not reflect the ethos and the principles and the values of our new democratic order. And these particular laws are still applicable. And we made some examples around, for example, the Prescription Act is a very, very old act of 1957, the State Liability Act of 1969, the Commissions Act of 1944 or 47. And these are old laws. And for me, it's quite important that as a country, we enter into a laborious process to transform these laws. And I wanted to check whether is that process in motion, because nothing has been said in respect of that particular process here. Because for me, that is quite important to ensure that all these laws are compatible with the current epoch of our democracy. And for this financial year, in terms of the APP, I've had nothing in respect of facilitating that particular process. I had other questions, Chair, but in the interest of time, as you indicated, those two questions are okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Vidovu. Yeah, I understand that you did have electricity challenges. Okay, I think perhaps DM, the NDPP, acting DG, and the SIU. Perhaps if we can just deal with these issues in this order, we get the SIU to come first, the NPA next, the department, and then the deputy minister. SIU, if we can, Medlamin.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. Yes, I'll respond on the issue of our human capital. Currently, we are managing our turnover rate. We are sitting at 4%. And also when it's coming to the resources, we're having a resource strategy model that we have where we say that we are growing our own timber. How are we doing that to grow our own timber, meaning we capacitate and upskilling our own? We have partnership with French Embassy that we entered into where we want to improve the capacity and competencies of the cyber forensic investigators. That is a rollout pilot that is ongoing. That pilot will also be able to help other law enforcement agencies, not only in South Africa, but also in the region, so that we have that capacity. We are managing our capacity and our human capital in the organization. Currently, we want to be the best employer of choice. So this is how we're having all those EVP that we have in the organization. And then I'll give to Mr. Lekgetho to look at the issues of whistleblowers.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. With regard to the risk on the whistleblower, we are monitoring the risk. And Chair, in terms of this risk, we look into this risk in terms of two categories. There is to whistleblower and to our members, because our members also are exposed to the risk where they get threatened. And for us to mitigate this risk, we are collaborating with NPA, that is the witness protection. Whenever we come to a situation where a whistleblower comes and say his life is under threat, we do engage the witness protection and they are able to assist us on that regard. And we are also collaborating with the crime intelligence, particularly on our member. If they feel that their life are threatened, the crime intelligence are able to do the threat analysis. And if we come to a point where we see that there's an issue, we are able to source the protection outside. But this is critical for the organization in order to make sure that we deliver. We always make sure that our members are safe and we monitor this risk on a regular basis. Thank you.
NDPP, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. If I can ask Advocate de Kock to deal with one or two of the matters, and then I'll come in after that, Chair.
Thank you very much, NDPP and Chair. So in relation to the question around delays and also the Northwest progress in respect of the Northwest matters, we'd like to propose that we will give a written update in relation to the the 95 matters spoken about by the Honourable Member. We will provide a written update in relation to those matters. Generally, as indicated by the ID, there is progress being made in relation to the state capture cases as identified by the Zondo Commission. And the ID did identify one of the critical challenges was the question of permanency and the question of capacity. And we are doing all in our power to build the capacity of the ID. And as indicated by the DM at the beginning of this hearing, the legislation in terms of permanency and powers for the ID is currently going to be provided as well to Parliament once it's gone through the various processes. So I think those two critical issues we understand contributes to our ability to move faster as far as the investigations are concerned. But what we have done generally in terms of the other serious corruption work, we're working very closely with the DPCI and the SIU, and referral to the MOU that we concluded, particularly in relation to the SIU work, will help us to ensure that these matters are finalized much quicker. We have also identified forensic investigations as an area of weakness within the state. And that is why the state forensic capability and capacity is now being developed within the FIC. And we will do all in our power to capacitate that capacity within the FIC to assist with the forensic investigations. But largely our approach is through the work of our national task force, we will try and ensure that all of these cases are prioritized as best we can through the justice system. Of course, once cases are enrolled and once cases get onto our court rolls, there are other challenges that impacts on our ability to finalize the matter. But NDPP, generally, those are the issues I can add in terms of the investigation and delays with some of the priority matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Chair, if I may respond to some of the issues that has been raised by Honorable Dodovu, in particular around what he refers to as the delay in dealing with prosecutions of high-profile cases. Let me say at the outset that it's actually 4 years since I've taken office as a national director. And certainly in the NPA, as the leadership, we have also been extremely concerned about the fact that we need to deliver on the mandate. We need to ensure that high-profile, impactful cases are brought to court. I want to remind the committee that the appointment of the NDPP in 2019, that was all that changed in the NPA, and it was only about 16 or 17 months after that, in 2020, that 2 of the deputy national directors were appointed, and we also were then in the midst of the COVID pandemic. And it's only in 2022 that we could really, post-COVID, and also then having had all the deputy national directors and many of the key senior leadership positions filled in the NPA, that we were able to really begin on this journey in a very focused, and having the senior leadership capacity all full, to then deal with the huge challenges that we're facing in terms of rebuilding the NPA, as well as contributing to ensuring that all of those that are responsible for state capture, that we prioritize and we deal with it in the context of a hugely complicated, not just National Prosecuting Authority, and a lot of work has been dealt with in that space. We didn't, like the SIU, deal with the presentation on all of the strategic initiatives of the NPA that are actually helping us to deliver on the core mandate. But there's a lot of presentations. We've done those presentations to our Justice Portfolio Committee, but a lot of work is going on in terms of ensuring that the NPA is a cutting-edge organization that's able to deal with, that is fit for purpose, and we can deliver on our core mandate. I want to mention that in this time, and I will get to the cases, the high impact cases, but the NPA is dealing with over 850,000 criminal cases every year in our courts. We've got to realize that, well, we recognize as the NPA that notwithstanding all of that work in building the NPA, in ensuring that we have an institution that is solid and that will be able to, withstand future attempts to capture it, that the key metric of success for many South Africans at this point is whether the state capture architects are going to jail. But we know these cases take time, and you've heard about the ID and our efforts to work with other partners to deal with these issues. And I can guarantee the committee that there's going to be those impactful cases that the Deputy National Director, Advocate de Kock, talked about in terms of us identifying to deliver in the next year, you will see that. But let's look at what has happened in the meantime. Let's consider some of the facts. The investigating director has over 90 continuing investigations. They have enrolled 34 cases involving over 200 accused persons, including senior politicians, current and former ministers, CEOs, provincial leaders, and even some of the largest corporate companies in the country. We have secured restraining orders to the value of 7.18 billion rands. And as part of the ongoing criminal investigations into complex corruption at Eskom, you heard the ID Advocate Johnson talk about the settlement agreement with ABB, which brought in 2.5 billion rands into the fiscus in punitive reparations. And beyond the ID, the Asset Forfeiture Unit has obtained over 2,000 confiscation and forfeiture orders involving 4.5 billion. Much of this has been plowed into the criminal asset recovery account in support of the criminal justice system. And in total, the AFU and its partners have frozen over 13 billion in stolen funds over the past 4 years. And there's a lot of work that's also happening in the anti-corruption task team space, where they are, in fact, high priority investigations and prosecutions have been identified, and adopting the integrated approach that you heard about, they have enrolled 78 cases involving almost 400 accused persons. So we recognize that, I think it must be recognized that a lot of work has happened. In fact, if you look at the 9 seminal cases that the ID enrolled last year, there are many very high-profile accused persons in those cases that I won't. It's publicly known, and I won't mention it now again. But what happens once these cases are enrolled, and there will be a lot more enrollments in this coming year, is that we deal with a lot of delays in the criminal justice system, and we have to look at a whole range of issues that need to be addressed. But besides those challenges in the criminal justice system, we have to deal with the so-called Stalingrad tactics that are employed by many accused persons to ensure that their cases are never really adjudicated upon. And the delaying tactic is regarded as a strategy to ensure that people are not held accountable. So we recognize all of this. We in the NPA have developed guidelines, and we've got a very clear strategy and approach to deal with these delaying tactics, which we are going to be employing more and more in the future, including the prosecutors being a lot more vigorous in applying in terms of Section 342A of the Criminal Procedure Act for the court to look at, to hold an inquiry into the delay in many of these matters. So the NPA is looking at many ways in which we can address these matters. But we do recognize that we need to deliver more, and hopefully with the NPA, with the ID becoming permanent, and together with the really good collaboration we have with many partners, that the honorable members and the people of this country will see a lot more progress in the coming year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, National Director. Over to the department. Mepale.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I have a problem with my connectivity, and I don't think I'll be able to show the video, but if you may allow me to proceed on that basis. Chairperson, my response is to Honourable Member Dadova's question regarding apartheid-era legislation and the old order legislation. As part of our presentation, and we did not delve into the finer details of it, but I would refer the Honourable Member to slides 75 and 76, where we talk to the update on upcoming legislation. Among the bills that we had on the legislative program include several pieces of colonial and apartheid-era legislation. One of the APP targets is the repeal and review or replacement of old order legislation. And I'll talk specifically to what the Honourable Member referred to. Firstly, with regard to the Criminal Procedure Act, yes, indeed, the Criminal Procedure Act is undergoing a review, and we are preparing a bill, and we are working together with the Law Reform Commission on this project that should have been finalized some time ago. but we have now put together the teams and a new project plan. We have a permanent full-time commissioner. The Law Commissioner will be leading this project. So that is undergoing a review. The Commissions Act, we have conducted a very broad review of it and done some research. We are looking to finalize that bill possibly for introduction in the new administration. What we are still working out is what should we replace, what mechanism do we replace in the bill insofar as how it is currently conducted, especially when one looks at the duration of commissions, the cost thereof, etc. Further, Chairperson, there's a matter that has been long outstanding, and that is the State Liability Amendment Bill, which related to one aspect of the State Liability Bill insofar as medical legal claims are concerned. That is also part of a recommendation that came, an interim recommendation that came from the South African Law Reform Commission insofar as the claims are concerned. But I think that bill will be, that act will have to undergo a further review once that report is finalized in June this year. So when we, I won't refer, so for instance, we are hoping to repeal the Riotous Assemblies Act, which was also declared unconstitutional, the Extradition Act, which is a very old order legislation, etc. And on the Criminal Law Sexual Offences Act, there's a 1957 piece provision that relates to the criminalization of sex work. So those are currently on the program, but we look at new matters that we need to prepare. And we look at the requests that come through from the entities in respect of amendments, constitutional court cases, and new bills. So we try to balance as much as we can. But as I indicated, it is part of the APP targets that we review and repeal about 3 to 4 cases per annum based on all the factors that must be considered when promoting a piece of legislation. I hope I've answered the question, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pillay. DM?
Yeah, look, I presumably just for wrap up.
Yep.
Yeah, no, well, look, it's always difficult with the select committee because you're performing oversight over so many departments and bodies. So this engagement would have taken place over, I think, 3 days in the National Assembly with the Portfolio Committee. But I hope that, I mean, we're conscious about the fact that this isn't a replication of the National Assembly Portfolio Committee, it's the National Council of Provinces, and that there should be provincial focuses. So, Chair, you asked questions about the Limpopo High Court. Honourable Dodovu asked questions about the Northwest. I don't know whose email. It's Ms. Rasa Chaba, but I think you should take it off the screen. But anyway.
I think that's someone from the NPA that is sharing
it's somebody
your
from,
screen.
yeah,
Is
it
it
looks like
Karen?
Rasitaba, but it's not really appropriate in terms of confidentiality issues for NPA inboxes to be on the screen. But yeah, so I'd like to thank everybody for their participation, and we will continue to engage and to try and do better for the people of South Africa. Thanks, Chair.
And thank you very much, DM, your team from the department, the NPA, the SIU, for this engagement. I think, as you correctly said, DM, I mean, our engagement with yourselves at this level happens very, like once a year, I would imagine. But it's important that we also get the necessary information from yourselves. Let me thank you for your presentations as well as for your interaction with us as a committee. I think the information that you do provide to us is very fruitful and useful, especially also in terms of our understanding of where the department not only plans to go, but also where they're at. on some of the matters, and we tend to raise some of the issues which are also pertinent to us and in terms of our own engagements in our various provinces. Let me also, I think in terms of what was indicated by the NPA, we will get a written update on the Northwest matter that was raised by Honorable Dodovu. I think that would, we would await that written response. Let me also take this opportunity then to encourage the department, the NPA, the SIU, for the work they do. The department should ensure that there's successful implementation of legislation, and as has been raised also, ensure the transformation of legislation in line with our democratic order. The tireless work that is done by the NPA and SIU, we urge that you continue with that, and that you also ensure that the state capture cases are prioritized. And also within the very tight budgets that all of you have, we would also urge you to continue to work within those budgets. There isn't much that we can do with some of these things, but you should continue to promote access to justice for all of our citizens, both in the urban as well as the rural areas. DM, as you're aware, this engagement will obviously culminate in a budget policy debate on the budget and APP for justice and constitutional development. I think that said, thank you very much. My apologies to rush some of the issues, but also my apologies to members who are currently traveling to Parliament for the plenary this afternoon. I tried to get this meeting done by 12:30, but unfortunately we were unable to manage that. But I know members are still logged in and probably listening in while they're traveling to Parliament. That being said, honourable members, thanks to yourselves as well for your attendance and participation in this important process. The meeting, I hereby declare this meeting closed. Thank you very much, everyone.